When I, Ibrahim Traoré, first heard the story of ZamZam water, my heart didn't just react. It trembled in a way that felt like the earth beneath my soul had shifted, because this was not the story of ordinary water. This was the story of a miracle born from the tears, footsteps, and unbreakable faith of a woman who stood alone in a desert where hope should have died. Yet it lived because Allah never abandons the heart that refuses to give up. And as I imagined Hajar running between Safa and Marwa with her newborn crying under the scorching sun, my chest tightened, because I saw not only a mother struggling to save her child, but a symbol of every human being who has ever fallen to their knees wondering if God still sees them. And what shook me the most was that Hajar did not sit and surrender. She ran, until her legs burned, until her breath trembled, until her heart nearly broke. And in those desperate footsteps I felt the echoes of every oppressed person, every abandoned nation, every soul that has been left to survive on faith alone. And when I learned that Allah allowed the miracle to emerge not when she was strong, but when she had exhausted every ounce of her strength, I felt something inside me collapse. Because that is when the spring of ZamZam burst from beneath the feet of her helpless child, reminding humanity that Allah's help doesn't arrive early or late. It arrives at the exact moment when you have done everything you possibly can and surrendered the rest to Him. And as that water rose from the earth, pure, endless, unstoppable, I understood why Muslims hold ZamZam to their hearts. Because it is not just water, it is the physical form of Allah's mercy. A living reminder that when the world gives you a desert, Allah can give you a fountain. And as I reflected on how ZamZam has flowed stronger for thousands of years, while normal wells dry, I felt humbled, even ashamed. Because we humans search for miracles in the sky, while forgetting that Allah places them right beneath our feet. And the more I learned, the deeper it struck me that the true miracle was not the water, but the faith that brought it, the patience that summoned it, the trust that unlocked it. And I asked myself, do we today have even a fraction of Hajar's faith? Would we run between our mountains of fear and hope as she did? Would we stand alone with no help, no certainty, no comfort, yet still whisper, Allah will not abandon me? And as this question echoed in my mind, it felt like Allah was asking me, asking us, asking every heart that feels lost, do you trust me the way Hajar did? And that question broke me, because the world praises strength, armies, power, but Allah made one woman's footsteps louder than empires. And He made one infant's cry the birthplace of a miracle that billions still drink today. And in that moment, I realized that ZamZam is not just a story. It is a message carved into the soul of humanity that no matter how impossible your situation looks, Allah can rewrite the ending in a single second. And that is why this story shook me to my core, because it proves that faith is not about seeing a path, but walking when there is none. Trusting that Allah can create water in a land where even hope cannot survive. And when I understood this, I felt my heart soften in a way I had never experienced before. As if ZamZam did not just flow in Mecca, it flowed inside me, cleansing doubt, washing fear, and lighting a flame that whispered, if Allah can bring water from a desert for a woman who refused to give up, He can bring miracles into your life too. Just run, just trust, just believe. And as this realization settled in my heart, I felt myself drawn deeper into the meaning behind Hajar's struggle. Because ZamZam is not just a miracle from the past. It is a mirror held up to every one of us today, showing that Allah tests the ones He loves, not to break them, but to raise them, to strengthen them, to transform them. And when I imagined her standing alone in the silent desert, I realized that sometimes Allah isolates you so you can hear Him more clearly, and sometimes He removes every human support from your life, so that you discover the strength you didn't know you carried. And in Hajar's footsteps, I saw the footsteps of every mother fighting for her children, every man standing for justice, every oppressed nation trying to rise again. Because her struggle is the universal language of perseverance, and her miracle is the universal promise of hope. And as I thought about how ZamZam continues to nourish millions even today, I felt a wave of awe wash over me, because what kind of water is this that never dries, never weakens, never fades, but grows stronger no matter how many hands reach for it? And the more I reflected, the more I understood that Allah wanted this water to be a living symbol of His closeness to humanity. a reminder that even in the harshest dryness of life, His mercy is overflowing. And I found myself asking, if a single act of trust from one woman could lead to a miracle that lasts thousands of years, then what miracles are we missing today simply because we stopped believing, because we grew tired before the seventh run, because we doubted Allah when relief didn't come immediately? And this thought shook me because it revealed the truth we often ignore, that Allah does not measure effort by results. He measures hearts by sincerity, and He answers not when we think the time is right, but when He knows our hearts are ready to receive. And as I sat there absorbing this miracle, I felt a spiritual responsibility awaken within me, a sense that every leader, every parent, every believer must learn from Hajar that true power is not in commanding armies or possessing wealth. It is in bowing your heart fully to Allah and trusting Him when nothing makes sense. And in this trust there is a freedom, a peace, a strength that no enemy can defeat, no hardship can steal, and no storm can shake, because the one who relies on Allah is never abandoned, never unseen, never forgotten. And when this truth settled into my soul, I felt humbled, I felt grounded, I felt elevated, because suddenly the world's noise, fear, and uncertainty seemed small compared to the vastness of Allah's mercy, and I realized that ZamZam is not just water for the body. It is water for the heart, cleansing doubt, washing despair, and planting within every believer the unshakable belief that even when the desert feels endless, Allah's help is already on its way, flowing silently beneath your feet, waiting for the moment you raise your hands and whisper with sincerity, "O Allah, I trust you." And that whisper alone is enough to move mountains, open paths, and bring miracles into existence. And as this whisper echoed in my mind, I found myself thinking about how many times in life we stand between our own Safa and Marwa, running not between mountains, but between fear and hope, between uncertainty and trust, between the weight of our struggles and the promise of Allah's help. Yet we often give up before our seventh run, forgetting that relief might be waiting just one step further, one prayer deeper, one moment later. And as this realization hit me, it felt as though the story of ZamZam was speaking directly to my heart, reminding me that faith does not remove hardship. It gives you the strength to walk through it without losing yourself. And I thought about how many of us cry for miracles while our hearts are still attached to this world. How many of us ask Allah for openings without taking the first step? How many of us expect water to flow, even though we haven't climbed our Safa, haven't run to our Marwa, haven't pushed our souls to the point where only Allah remains? And in this reflection, I felt a deep humility, because Hajar showed the world that Allah's greatest miracles come when a believer empties themselves of everything except trust. And I began to feel as though ZamZam is not just a miracle of water. It is a mirror showing us who we truly are, and what we lack, and what we must become. And as this understanding filled me, I realized that the desert did not break Hajar. It revealed her strength, it polished her faith, it transformed her into a symbol for all humanity. And I asked myself whether our own deserts, our hardships, our loneliness, our struggles, are actually gifts in disguise, inviting us to rise, to trust, to evolve, and to reconnect with Allah in a way comfort never allows. And suddenly everything around me felt different, clearer, softer, as though Allah was saying, "Do not fear your desert, for I am the one who can make water flow from its heart." And that message shook me, because it meant that no situation is truly hopeless, no human is truly helpless, no believer is ever alone. And when that truth settled into my soul, I felt a strength I cannot explain, a calmness that did not come from myself, but from the realization that if Allah could sustain a mother and her child in a barren land through a miracle that has lasted thousands of years, then surely He can sustain us through our hardships today. And at that moment, I understood why millions travel across the world just to taste a sip of ZamZam, because they are not just drinking water, they are drinking hope, drinking faith, drinking the living reminder that Allah's mercy is greater than our fears, and His power is greater than every difficulty standing before us. And as I thought about those millions of people lifting cups of ZamZam to their lips, I imagined the silent prayers whispered over that sacred water, prayers for healing, for forgiveness, for strength, for direction, for miracles. And I felt chills, because this water carries the legacy of a mother's tears, a prophet's future, and a miracle carved by divine mercy. And drinking it becomes more than a physical act. It becomes a connection to a moment in history when Allah showed humanity that He is closer than we think, more merciful than we imagine, and more powerful than we can ever comprehend. And as this understanding washed over me, I realized how small our fears truly are compared to the vastness of Allah's plan, how limited our vision is compared to His wisdom, and how quickly we despair, even though He has written stories far more beautiful than anything we could design for ourselves. And in that moment, something inside me softened, as though my heart itself had been touched by the coolness of ZamZam, reminding me that faith is not about understanding every step of the journey. It is about trusting the one who designed the path. And as I reflected deeper, I felt overwhelmed by the thought that Allah chose such a simple, humble moment. An abandoned woman, an empty desert, a crying child, to reveal a miracle that would nourish nations for thousands of years. And this shook me because it proved that Allah does not look at status, wealth, titles, or power. He looks at sincerity, at effort, at the heart that calls upon Him with truth. And in Hajar's voice I heard the voice of every person who has ever pleaded, "O Allah, help me." And in Allah's answer I saw the promise He gives to every believer. I am nearer to you than you can imagine. And as this truth wrapped itself around my thoughts, I began to realize that ZamZam is more than a spring. It is a message that Allah's mercy flows endlessly even and everything else runs dry, that His help arrives exactly when hope seems lost, and that His love reaches the hearts of those who stand firm in their trust. And I felt myself trembling internally, because if Allah can bring water out of barren sand for a woman who refused to give up, then what excuse do we have to lose hope, to fall into despair, to believe that our hardships are stronger than His power? And as this understanding deepened, I felt a sense of responsibility ignite within me, a calling to remind humanity that their deserts are not punishments but invitations, opportunities to witness Allah's miracles the same way Hajar did, and that if we run with sincerity, if we pray with humility, if we place our hearts fully in Allah's hands, then ZamZam will not only flow in Mecca, it will flow in our lives, our homes, our nations, and our souls, bringing light where there was darkness, strength where there was weakness, and hope where there was none. And as this realization continued to expand in my heart, I found myself staring into the invisible deserts within people today, the silent battles no one sees, the private fears they bury deep inside, the quiet tears they wipe before anyone notices. And I understood that every human carries a place within them where they feel abandoned, overwhelmed, or uncertain, just like Hajar did. But the secret is that Allah allows these deserts not to destroy us, but to reveal to us the strength He placed within us. And when I thought about ZamZam flowing beneath the feet of a helpless infant, I felt a powerful truth settle in my soul. Sometimes the miracle you seek is already beneath you, already written for you, already prepared for you. But Allah waits until your heart reaches the point of full trust before He unveils it. And this truth struck me so deeply that for a moment I could feel the weight of every person who has ever questioned themselves, every believer who wondered if Allah hears them, every struggling soul who asked, "Why me?" And in that moment I wished I could tell them what ZamZam tells us, that Allah's timing is perfect, His mercy is limitless, and His support is always closer than the despair whispering in your ear. And the more I reflected, the more I felt the story of ZamZam turning into a living lesson for my own life, showing me that leadership is not about standing above people, but standing with them, feeling their pain, understanding their fears, and reminding them that every struggle is tied to a divine purpose. And as I carried this thought further, I realized that the miracle of ZamZam is not only a gift, but a responsibility, a message that every believer must carry to those who have lost hope, telling them that if Allah could bring water out of dry sand for Hajar, then He can bring solutions out of your struggles, blessings out of your trials, and light out of your darkest nights. And this understanding humbled me to the point where I felt my eyes soften, because I saw how Allah honors the human heart that refuses to surrender, how He rewards the soul that continues to run even when it is tired, and how He lifts the believer who whispers His name with sincerity. And with this reflection, I began to see life differently, not as a series of hardships, but as a series of opportunities for Allah to show His power, His mercy, His love, and His closeness. And I felt a warmth inside me, as if ZamZam itself had touched my spirit, reminding me that no matter how heavy the burden, no matter how endless the desert, the help of Allah is always nearer than we think, always more powerful than we imagine, always more beautiful than the ending we hoped for.